Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Curious Midlife Podcast. And today I have a really special guest who is a dear, dear friend. And I don't get many men on the podcast because it's here for primarily for us midlife women. However, Thomas has been, so this is my dear friend and coach, Thomas Couetdic, who we met on my parkour journey. And the reason I wanted Thomas to be on the podcast today is that he has played such a critical role in not just like the kind of physical side of parkour. You were a coach, you were there. I had many other coaches, but what you did for my mindset and my emotions and helping me, what we call, breaking the jump in the parkour world, which was really this whole world of how to face fears. So, Thomas, I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself a little bit because you are someone who most people don't know people like you. And I say that in the kindest way because you're an elite mover. You move at an elite level, and you did that in the parkour world. You're currently deeply embedded in the climbing world right now. But you're also an adventure traveler, and you have done many interesting things in your life and through still at a relatively young age. So hello and welcome to the podcast, first of all.
Thank you. Hello.
And for anyone listening, there'll be a lot of giggling and stupidity during this because that's just what happens when I'm with my friends like Thomas. So um Thomas, for people who, if you haven't read my book, Breaking the Jump, there's a chapter which is all about one of my training experiences with Thomas. But if someone is new to you, Thomas, can you just give us a brief overview of your movement story, of where it really kind of started for you and where you're at right now?
Okay. It's hard to even tell where it started because like as a kid I was really into exploring and going into places where I shouldn't be going. And I have always felt kind of drawn to like adventures and things like this. Like that's how I experienced them. It was adventures, sneaking into buildings, and things like this. Um, and then as I grew up, I discovered parkour. And I like as soon as I heard about it, I saw a video about it, and I was like, "Wow, this is what I have to do." Like it's not just I'm interested in it; it's that's my life. That's what I'm going after now. And there was no information about it or anything like this, so it was hard to search for anything, like to even know who was doing this. Any information was really hard to find. So I got into that
What year
for
was that roundabouts?
around 2001.
Mhm.
Yeah, so like parkour kind of exploded into the scene in 2001. It was older than that, but it was very unknown. And there's this film that came out, Yamakasi, that kind of made it really popular. And when that film came out, there were like a couple like television programs that talked about it and showed some people training parkour. And that's how I discovered it. So I got into that at that point, and then I trained for, it's hard to say, but like over 10 years, like at intense rhythm, like seriously training. And then after that, I joined the army for a bit because I thought it was interesting to, like, I like the mental aspect of it, like pushing yourself. And I was in this elite type of thing where like they really push you to the limits. So that was really interesting, and got into travels as well. I wanted to not just uh, practice like in a set, in a specific set. I didn't want to limit my experience, my knowledge, my, like, everything I did. I wanted to adapt it to the world. So I started thinking, okay, I want to travel, I want to see the world, I want to explore, I want to go on adventures. to see if what I learned through parkour and through any other experience, to see if it actually translate to the real world, basically. Because like if you do parkour and you're strong in parkour, maybe as soon as you're gonna, I don't know, climb a mountain or whatever, maybe like you're weak at it, and therefore yeah, exactly. Like parkour is meant to make you strong in general. It's not just meant to make you strong in parkour. So the only way to be sure that you're actually getting stronger is to face new challenges that you've never faced before. So you ride your bike across Asia, or you climb a mountain, or whatever it is, and then like you can see how you manage it, how you deal with it, and you can either realize, okay, yeah, I did learn some things with parkour, and now I feel stronger, I feel more capable of dealing with situations. Or it can make you think like, okay, I was okay in this field, but in this it was like really bad, and I really need to do something about this. So it makes you kind of explore something different, like you go and pursue some different direction and see what you can learn from that. So that's what happened for me when I started traveling around and doing all these like little adventures and things like this. And
I mean, they weren't quite little adventures. So can you just what stays in your mind that for you was one of the kind of most memorable experiences of like, what were the insights that you gained and where was it? Because you were training parkour in a really high level, very disciplined, very continuous, very, you were part of the spectacle of parkour. You were the guy who could jump across rooftops. You were the guy who can run up and scale buildings and walls and all of those kind of things. So you had this incredible physical aptitude, but as you say, like we want to stress test it. Like, but I'm good when I'm in the gym, or I'm good when I'm in a parkour class, or I'm good when I'm on the streets of London. But how am I outside of my culture? How am I in a different environment, in a different weather? How am I without my friends? How am I without context? How am I? So what for you was one of those memories or that comes to mind about this combination of where your training meets the real world in an adventure context?
Yeah. Well, one thing I should make clear from the start is that as physical as parkour can be, for me, it was more about the mental journey. Like you use your body to put yourself into mental situations. Basically, that's what parkour is. So that's what drew me to parkour, because I had a problem with self-esteem and didn't really feel like I could achieve stuff. And I got into parkour like full in, like I'm gonna do this as much as I can, as best as I can. It's probably not gonna do anything for me. I'm just too bad at it. I'm just like, I'm worth nothing, all this stuff. But at least I'll give it a good try. Like that's how it started for me. So that was always my mindset. Like I want to get stronger in my mind. It was not about like doing the bigger jump or whatever it is. It's about pushing my limits and learning to understand myself, to understand my fears, to understand my like everything that's going on in my mind, to make sense of it, my emotions, to gain control over all that. So that was always my pursuit. So when I got into travels, I was still in this mindset. I still am today. Like this is still like what I find fascinating, like being able to gain control over ourselves, over our emotions and all that. So I think the most memorable point of that kind of exploration for me was when I did my trip to across a part of Asia. So I was 22. I had been training parkour for a few years, and I thought, okay, I need to go out into the world and do something intense. Like I've always dreamt of some life-changing experience, where you go on a journey and you come back and you're not the same person anymore. So I had done a few like cycling trips in France, and like went to Italy once. But it was like it was just training for me. Like at some point I knew I had to go on something like a bit crazy, a bit out of my control, like out of my comfort zone. So I took a plane to China, and then another one to like the border with Tibet, like close to Tibet. And then I sneaked into Tibet because like normally when you want to go to Tibet, you have to tell them, okay, I'm going to this hotel on that day and then this hotel on that day. And like it's very controlled. I didn't want that. So I just snuck in and started my journey there. My general idea was to follow the Mekong River that starts in Tibet and goes all the way to Vietnam. Because I knew like I would be in Tibet, in the Himalayas, then I would go into the like kind of jungle type of areas, like through a lot of different areas and places I'd never been, cultures I'd never experienced before. Like it had everything. Like it was going to be hard physically, mentally. It was going to be this big like discovery of a world I have no idea about and adapting to that. And right away, like from the first day of me starting on my journey, so I bought a bike, the worst bike you can imagine, because that's all I could find. I bought a bike there, like in Tibet, and on the first day, I realized I can't even like use that bike. Basically, it's just so hard. I'm at like 3,000 meters or 4,000 meters of altitude. There's wind, it's cold. Like it was in winter, it was in January, because of course, you know, why not go to Tibet in
why do it
January?
in good weather when you can do it in bad weather?
Exactly. Um, and so like for a day of pushing my bike, like I couldn't even ride it. I thought, what am I doing here? Like why am I here? And I felt like at my lowest point ever mentally, you know? Like I've put myself into this. Now I'm here. I've spent money. I spent time. I prepared all this. I told people I'm here. Like people are encouraging me and stuff. And now I'm here and like I feel like I have to give up on the first day. Like it was my lowest point ever. Like I cried. It was horrible. And like I kept on going for like the rest of the day, and then I just ditched my bike because it was useless, and I just kept on walking the next day. And I I thought, okay, I'll just give up. The next town where I go, that's where I'll stop, because anyway I can't stop. I'm in the middle of nowhere. So I started my journey, so I have to go to the next town, then I'll hitchhike or whatever it is, and I'll stop there. And so like for 2 or 3 days I walked like this in Tibet. And then I got to the first town and I thought, well, okay, well, that was horrible, but I've made it this far. Like maybe I can make it to the next one, you know? And so I started going on to the next one. And then again, like after that, I'm like, but why am I doing this? Like, this is horrible. This is so hard. Why am I putting myself through this? I'm going to stop at the next town. And I kept going like this. Like, it was pretty much like day after day, like, get to the end of the day and then you give up tomorrow. Basically, that's pretty much what I was telling myself. And I was sure I was going to give up. Like I could look at my map and I could see how little distance I was covering on the map and everything that I still had to cover. I was like, I'm never going to the end of this. This is impossible, but I'm going to give up. But, you know, like I've done this much so far. So at least I can do a little more and we'll see. And many times I was so close to giving up. I was like, okay, if tomorrow it rains or it snows, I give up because it's too cold. It's horrible. And I don't know, fate or whatever, it wouldn't snow on that day or it wouldn't rain on that day. I was like, oh shit, I have to continue. So I just went on like this. And after a while I get used to it. And the more I cover, the more I realize, okay, I'm actually doing this. Like I haven't given up so far. I've done all this. Like I can't give up now, you know, because I've done all this. And so the more distance I covered, the easier it started to become in my mind. Even though the conditions were really hard, it was snowing, it was the altitude, I was sick, I wasn't eating, everything was just horrible. I couldn't sleep, it was too cold. Went down to like minus 30 degrees Celsius. So like that's super cold. Didn't sleep during the night. But even when I got to a town for like to find a room or something, like it was in the middle of nowhere, so it's not like a fancy hotel with a heater or anything. It's just this room in this wooden shack with broken windows, so it's as cold inside as it is outside, you know. You just don't have the rain pouring on you.
I remember you saying something about one time and you would just go and knock on someone's door and just
Yeah,
make the sign of like you needed to sleep and you needed to eat something. So
Yeah,
the spoon in the mouth and the hands by
yeah,
the head, and
yeah.
and, and knowing also how shy you are,
Mm,
that I was always like, wow, you did that. That's And then I remember a photograph of a disco, which was which was people stood in like winter jackets in what just looked like a kind of barn or something.
dancing
Was
around.
this in Tibet or
Yeah, that
Mongolia
was in
or
Tibet.
something?
Yeah, that was near the start of the trip, like the first town I got to. I made some friends there, and it's like the random stuff of travels, like they invited me over to this disco in their little weird town, and
Amazing.
everyone was dancing in those winter coats
Amazing.
with their Tibetan music. It was really cool. Like I had a great time. It was fantastic. But
Okay.
that's the surprises of travels. That's amazing. I love these things.
Yeah.
And having to get in contact with people, like to talk with people, like something in my everyday life I don't do so much. I'm quite like I like to do it. I can be sociable, but I just select the people I'm sociable with. But when you're in a situation where you're either in trouble or everything's just hard and you need other people, basically you need their help, you need them to be there for you even if they don't know you, then it's naturally you have to go towards them. Like you ask them for help, you ask them, look, I don't have food, I haven't eaten, can you give me something to eat? Or like I need a place to stay tonight because otherwise I might freeze to death if I sleep outside. Can you do something? Like, can you host me? And those people were like the nicest people ever. It's like second nature for them, it's like, yeah, of course, like come in. I I had this thing of like I met a girl when I arrived in the town that to like I saw her there and I asked her like, oh, is there a place to sleep? Like she could speak a few words of English, so she said, okay, wait. And she made a phone call and she told me, okay, you see the house over there? This is my uncle's house. You can go there. He'll host you. And I was like, oh, thank you. That's really nice. So I go to the house and I go around and I see a guy at the entrance and I'm like, yeah, can I sleep here? And he's like, oh, yeah, of course, come in. Like he didn't speak any English, but he was like, yeah, come in. He was making rice in this big pot and he had a friend there with him. And so I sat there and ate rice with them, and it was really nice. We couldn't talk, but we could still like exchange, through gestures and eye contact and stuff like this. And then he told me, "Oh, you can sleep here." And it was this little room with a big hole in the roof, But like
Skylight.
it was, yeah, exactly. And there was a big pile of hay, and I just slept on the hay, and I could see the stars, and it wasn't too cold, so it was one of the like first
Magical.
night where I could actually sleep, and it was beautiful, and it was perfect. It was really nice. And in the morning, I get up and I thank the guy. He was there again, so I thank him and get back on my way. And I see that girl again. I tell her, "Oh, thank you so much. Like your uncle was really nice. He hosted me. He gave me food. It was really nice. Thank you so much." And she was like, "But my uncle doesn't live there. He lives there. Like I went to the wrong house." So this random guy who just sees this tourist come over and say, "Hey, can I sleep?" And I, yeah, sure, come in.
Come in,
Yeah,
have some rice
yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah. I mean, it's the kindness of strangers is something I love, and I'm a great optimist when it comes to humanity in terms of
Yeah,
this kindness of strangers and what we can do, and also in a lot of places, when you travel, to not have these fears, to not have a fear of this otherness, a fear of
yeah,
difference, a fear of I don't understand the ways and the customs here, and yet without a word spoken in the same language, you can have this gut instinct of good, bad, kindness, appreciation, and gratitude, and all of those things. And
yeah,
I remember also, so I mean, there are these kind of themes in your life since I've known you that have always been about, as you say, exploring this mindset of inviting in challenge, and where you can find these opportunities for growth and ease in the discomfort, and the discomfort of facing who you are in those moments. And just like the last travel thing I want to talk about, I remember, in London, as you say, you're quite you're like me. We have good social skills. We can do those things, but we're both very introverted people. And I remember in London, you would shy away from kind of bigger groups or very busy places. But then after you and our friend Andy, you and Andy went to India, and you rode motorbikes across India. You came back, and I remember we were next to, like, we'd been training. I think it was at Latimer Road, and then we were going to get some food in the big shopping center, and I was like, "Are you going to be okay there? Are you not fazed by this?" And it was a really busy day, and there were in a London context, there were people everywhere. But you had just returned from India, and you said that you would arrive in a town and be surrounded by people. And so that for me was a really kind of beautiful, like seeing you so at ease in a busy London shopping mall after you'd found ease with the discomfort of people and busyness through your exposure to your experiences on that adventure. And so one of the things that you're kind of known for a little bit with some of our friends is you mess with our minds. You really, and I think it's because you are so open to messing with your own, and also this combination, and you explore that like through these physical practices. So you had this, very long, deep, immersive, kind of like a devotion to parkour in these ways. And you trained under some of, like you were part of this kind of like second, third wave generation of it, and you knew some of the founders, and were very, respectful, and you're always very humble to the process of what you can learn and share with people. And so it's through these physical practices and this combination of mind, body, and I think you were a really huge influence on me for really understanding this emotional side of movement. And when we move our bodies in different ways, we get to see who we are in those moments. Was that something you were conscious of, that you were doing and sharing? Or was it just part of who you are and having these interests?
You're talking about like messing with people's minds and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. And just how for you, did it really come through the exploration of the physical really led to these emotional self-knowledge, introspective journeys?
Well, for me, it's always gone hand in hand. Like if you like practicing something physical is always related to some form of mind or mental or psychological aspect. Like you can't separate one from the other unless you're doing this very mechanical, repetitive action. But that's not what most active people do. That's not what it's about. Like you want to grow, you want to make progress, and so there's this whole mental and emotional dimension to it. So I've always felt fascinated about that, like how the mind affects the body and how we are our own limits, Like I was a good example of this. I didn't know that I had potential when I started on my journey. And I was pretty sure I didn't have potential, even though I did, like everyone does. It's just about finding it, about cultivating it, exploring it. Like we can all do that. But if in your mind you already start from this closed mindset of like I cannot do anything, like that's it. You've switched off all of your potential, and it's just happened there. Like you didn't even go out into the world and try anything. You didn't test yourself, but already in there, you've shut down everything. And when I realized that, when I started making progress in parkour and looking back and thinking, wow, like now I can do this stuff that before, if I saw someone do it, I would like, wow, that person is a god, you know? And now I can actually do some of this stuff. Like it made me realize, okay, wow, like how much I was limiting myself and how much we do this in general. We all do this, you know? And I keep doing it. Even to this day, I still limit myself a lot, but I try to be aware of it. And especially when I see it in other people, when I was coaching, like it's something that kind of triggers me because it reminds me of myself, you know, and it reminds me of something I don't want to be. I don't want to be someone who's limiting himself. So if I see it in someone else, like, I don't know, it wakes something up in me and I want to destroy it right now. Like, stop with that. And this is your potential. Everything else you're thinking around it and building around it, that's just nonsense that you're creating in your mind. Like, look at your potential. That's what is there, you know, that's what really is there. So I think that's why it evolved into this style of coaching that I had, where like I'm nice, I'm helpful, I want people to grow and everything, but if I start pinpointing some excuses or whatever, like something that we construct, you know, to kind of like, no, I can't do this, like I get into it, you know,
I
because
know.
I want to give people what like I tried giving myself. You know, I wish I had, well, I did have some people doing that for me, but I wish I had someone like around me all the time, like telling me, no, this is wrong, this is bullshit, stop saying that, stop thinking like this, you know. So like I try to be that person when I coach. And so I like, people have told me, yeah, you're like, you really get in our mind, and like you can make us like I don't know, question ourselves in the nicest manner possible. Like I've been told that
Sure.
many times. I
I
had people
mean,
like crying, like good tears, but like, you've really pushed me to my limit and blah blah blah. Like I didn't see it like that. For me, I didn't experience it like that. I was just like saying, hey, but okay, you feel you can't do this, but why can't you do it? Tell me the reason why you cannot do this right now. Oh, you're tired. Okay, well, so you're tired to the point that you cannot jump from there to there. That's why you're telling me. Oh yeah. Oh, but you have like, I don't know, you have some pain or whatever it is, or you, I don't know. Like I try to get to the bottom of it, of why can't you do this? And in the end, if there's no valid answer, then do it. Like why don't you do it? And it's just that, and it's putting people in that position, giving them the freedom to say, no, I just want to walk away. I'm not interested. Fine, okay, you can walk away. You're free to walk away, but at least you know that you're walking away from something that you could actually do. You're walking away from your potential, basically. and and that triggers people a lot. Like we don't like to do that. We don't like to see ourselves as someone who just quits on something that is just there, like it's within reach, you know. So I think that's how my style evolved over time.
yeah, and I think because you're in this constant beginner's mindset, and you're very humble and you're a very generous coach. So you gave me an existential crisis of the best kind. And it was, and I've written about this before, but basically, I mean, it was, and I don't even know if you remember this time. I know you've heard me say the story, but I don't know if you even remember the moment. So it was in Moberly. It was an indoor parkour class. I was, writing up my PhD. So my days were spent in this monastic state of, I can do it. No, I can't. Oh my God, it's overwhelming. Read, write, review, read, write, review. And then I would leave the house in the evening and go down the road, and I'd go to this parkour class. And so when I would go into the class, I remember this time, and people would be like, Julie, are you stoned? And I'd just be like, no, I'm just reading and writing a lot, and I haven't seen anyone all day. Like it was a very immersive kind of phase. And we went through the class, and you were coaching, and I remember, like trying. I would give it my effort. And then towards the end of the class, I think it was Chris Roat, so Blaine was doing we're just gonna do like 5 push-ups or something. It's something that sounded like nothing, but he didn't tell you that, like, oh, you have to take 30 seconds to go down and 30 seconds to go up, and then you're gonna hold it there and da da da. And for me, in that moment, my tank was empty. And I remember like, just kind of going down to like the low part of a push-up and then just like plop. And having like, my body, like my belly and chest, like lying on the floor and looking up. And you came in front of me and you just sat in a deep squat, like with the most ease and comfort, with this fresh face of like youthful ease. And in your gentle, calm voice, you were like, "Hey, Julie, what's up?" And I was like, I can't do it. And you looked at me so quizzically, like as if to say, like, what are the meanings of these words? and you just went, you didn't try. And number one, this filled me with rage. This filled me with like, it's okay for you. You're this young, fit, strong guy. You have no idea what it's like to be in my body right now. Da, da, da. That was the impulse. And then came the thing that really mattered. Then came the really interesting reflection was, yeah, but did I? Maybe he's right. It was quite easy for me to decide, yeah, I'm tired. Enough. Down. And down I went. And so I was in this kind of like half pissed off, half reflective, with the inkling of like, shit, I have to take responsibility for my actions here. And I have no business to be mad at you. I have no business to be, and I don't think I said anything at the time. I think I was probably just sweating and like going, it was probably like a moment that could have meant, it was just a moment that happened and passed. And you got on with your life. And for me, I cycled home and it was this moment of shit, I'm researching a topic about people exploring, about meeting your limits and then seeing what happens when you think you're there. Like what happens next? And do you even know what your limit is? Or are we so used to just going, it's hard, flop on the floor. I'm tired, I won't try. I'm like, where is this word yet? Where are these ideas? And so I got to the top of the road and it was an uphill climb and there's a traffic light. And I would always kind of want the traffic light to be on red because it would just give me time to have a little pause, a breather before the next little uphill bit. And I got there and the light wasn't on red. I was like, shit, like I'm tired. I'm tired anyway. I'm tired in life right now. And now I'm tired from parkour. And now I'm tired from the uphill cycle ride. And it's evening and it's cold and it's dark. And now I'm tired because I don't even get to rest at the red light, at the traffic lights. And as I was approaching it, and it's on amber, it's like, shit, I need to, and then it's going to go to green. I'm like, but do I really try? When I get to amber and I could push through just to make it to the road, like, but do I try? And then, my God, for the next 2 weeks, every action in my life was framed with this like little Thomas air bubble going, did you try? So everything I applied to all these different contexts. I'd go to Sainsbury's, go to the supermarket, the boot of my car would be full of shopping bags and like, okay, you're going to do 3 or 4 in and outs. And then like, what if I could take all of them? Did I even try? I'm going to take all the shopping bags. And this had, and like today, I could talk about this thing for hours because it changed me. It changed me because you dared to question me, but you did it with kindness. You did it with openness, and you did it from a perspective of you are always humble to these processes of who am I right now, mind and body and emotionally, and am I really tired? Am I physiologically tired, or am I scared tired? And am I used to being brave? And or am I happy with who I am? And am I actually honest about that? Or is it a bullshit story that I use to just keep it easy? So like at events, I would turn up and film and I'd be like, oh, I'll take part a bit. When we were asked to do uncomfortable things, I go and pick up my camera. I hid behind my camera for years. So your training, and you have like, you know, just for anyone listening to this, like Thomas also has like all the attributes of an amazing coach to improve your physical performance, like how to jump, how to climb, the technique, where to do this, where to do that, or that. But like your area of genius of how we get to see who we are in the moment, and of really like this role of fear of like, I didn't like being scared. And I think and I know a lot of other kind of beginners, people like, I mean, Layla Curtis, who we both know, like Layla and I were both these women who were, you know, older than most people in the class. We didn't come with some great physical aptitude. And yet we were being taught by people who were incredible elites in this field. And you were inviting us, and you cared about our emotional, mental, and physical approach to the challenges we were being set. And your belief in us, and I've talked to Layla about this, has always been extraordinary. And I think some movement cultures don't have that. I think there are so many movement cultures that have a hierarchy of, if you can do this, you go over there, and if you can't do it, you're not strong. But your idea of strength is far more holistic, and having this deeply emotional, mental side to it. So I always want to thank you for that. But that existential 2 weeks was a kind of game changer. And then there were a few other kind of key moments. But one thing I really want to get into, to talk about, is I was someone who thought they liked challenges, who thought they was brave, who thought I thought kind of I was brave because I was doing things that maybe other people weren't doing. And whether it was tiny things like how I was living my life, or choosing this kind of activity rather than this career path of you know, having a slightly more scenic route to life. And yet when I was asked to extend that way of thinking into some other contexts, I was just plain scared. And I avoided fear. And you were someone who has really nurtured the value of fear. So really, like, if someone's listening to this and being like, but like, being scared is not good. Like, having fear is not good. And what I learned was always that, well, fear is your friend. So I just want to hand it over to you and say, like, but why? Why should we be inviting things in that scare us? What is there to gain from these explorations of fear? Like, what is it? Like, it's not pleasant. So what's the point of it?
Well, the way I see fear, like for me, it's like, you know, I don't know if you have a car, but you have this little warning light that goes on your dashboard, you know, that is just there to tell you, okay, something's wrong. Like, that's how I see fear. Like, it's something that pops up in your mind and that tells you, look, this requires your attention right now. It may be a big thing, it may be a small thing, but it just requires your attention. That's it. That's all that fear is. It's this information that comes to your mind, like this little notice. Hey, look at this. That's all. Okay. And then we build a million things around it. Like we might even define ourselves through our fears. You know, like, I'm afraid of heights. That's who I am. That's my label. That's my identity. I'm afraid of heights. No, you have some fear within some situations with heights, not all situations with heights. I'm sure if you're in the building and you look out the window, there's a glass window, you just look out with your hands on the window like this, you're probably not afraid because you feel safe. There's probably other situations like this where you feel safe and you're not afraid. So it's not in every situation with heights that you're afraid. It's in some situations. So if you start to look at it precisely like this, then you realize that you are not your fear. Your fear doesn't define you. It's not your identity. So like for me, that's the starting point of looking at fear. So you look at it objectively. It's no longer this thing that is you. It's just a piece of information that you can work with. And then why is it beneficial? Because it's a great way to know yourself. Whenever you have fear, it's often because there's one thing or something you don't really understand in the situation, that's going on. And so there's fear. It's like a big question mark. Like, what is this? What's going on? What are we supposed to do here? So exploring that fear means exploring yourself. You're exploring yourself through that fear. You're answering that question. You're putting an answer to that question mark. And it's therefore regaining control over yourself, over your emotions, over whatever's going on through your mind. You learn to regain control because you're not telling yourself, okay, I have this fear and that's it. I'm avoiding it. I'm putting it aside and I don't want to hear about it anymore. You're looking into it. You're exploring it. You're answering questions, and you're regaining that space in your mind. You're regaining that power over yourself, over your emotions and everything that's going on. So like when I was training parkour, fear was a big part of the challenges. Pretty much every challenge had a dimension of fear. Sometimes it was a big one, like what we called breaking a jump, was that basically you're standing on a wall, you have to jump to another wall. Maybe there's this big drop, or maybe there's a branch in your way, or maybe the landing spot is slippery or difficult or moves or whatever it is. And it's scary. Like you're in this situation where like, I think I can do this jump, and you're reassuring yourself, yeah, I've counted the distance and I know I can jump this and everything. But I'm terrified because, what if I fall? What if the branch hits me and then I just lose whatever, And so you go through this whole process of trying to answer all these questions, like, okay, what if I can't make the distance? Well, I've jumped similar distances. I've just measured the distance. I know I can do it. Okay, so this is answered. I know I can do this jump in terms of distance. Okay, what else? Well, I'm afraid that like the landing zone is a bit slippery. Okay, I'll go and practice some jumps on even more slippery surfaces, or smaller surfaces or whatever, so that this will feel easy when I do it. Okay, so now I've answered that question, and so on and so forth, until you've answered all the questions and you're just left there with the knowledge that you can do this challenge. And then you just like this, you have this moment of truth. Oh, okay, now I'm going to take control. I'm going to do it. And well, you break the jump. So like this process, I think for a lot of people who are not accustomed to it, it can be something that's just really scary and maybe not even an option. Like for a lot of people, you reach that point where there's this fear that comes up in your mind, and you're like, no, I don't want to do this. I'm gonna stay away from this because fear equals danger, and I don't want to be in danger and all that. But actually, by exploring it, and when I say explore, I don't actually mean necessarily like doing a big jump or climbing this really high thing or whatever. It can just be about questioning it, like looking at it objectively and thinking, okay, what is it exactly that I'm afraid of here? Why is it justified? And if so, like, what can I do to not like to be reassured about this? And just by doing this process of questioning and being objective, you're already learning a lot about yourself. You're learning to deal with something that at first is telling you run away, but because you look at it objectively, you realize, well, okay, actually it's not that scary. It's not that bad. And maybe it turns out I can deal with it. I can face it, like maybe the answer will be run away in some situations, but in most situations, I guarantee that it won't be that. It will be like, there's a way to deal with it. And we're going to look into it. We're going to be objective. We're going to look at things as they are, and we're going to deal with that. So like, and whoever has ever gone over a fear of whatever it was, even if it was a small thing, like, that how beneficial it's been, how rewarding it's been. Like suddenly you feel like you're a new person. You've discovered something. You've unlocked something within you that was there, but you didn't really know it was there. You've unlocked it, and now it's part of you, and you feel like you've grown in that moment. And it can be something really tiny, but it has a big effect on you. So imagine doing that on a regular basis, with a million things that scare you, sometimes big things, sometimes smaller things, but you explore them, you question them, you just look at them, and maybe you find answers, and you're going to grow from it. So like I think it's really fascinating in that regard. And as a coach, when I was coaching people going through that process, it was one of my favorite aspects of coaching. It was guiding people through that, like asking them the questions that they should be asking themselves, and trying to be that voice of yeah, but okay, you're afraid of that jump, but like you've done that jump over there, it's a lot bigger, right? Yeah, it's bigger. Yeah, so like you could do that one. Like technically, I'm not saying do it, like I'm saying technically you're capable of jumping right now from here and landing there safely. Yeah. And so like doing this little process, of looking at it objectively, and you can see the transformation in people. Like I've had that transformation with me, over the time, and building that confidence and realizing after a while, like I've started here and now I'm here, and like I've gone through all this, and wow, like I never thought I would reach this point in my mind where I have this confidence and knowledge about myself, and I've reassured myself about so many things. And like it's personal growth. Like it's the I think if you don't explore that element, like whatever you do will just be like a physical thing, but you're not going to push through those closed doors. You're always going to stay trapped in that little space, and I think you'll be missing out a lot on who you can be, about like on your potential, on all those things that you can accomplish and that you don't even know that you might be, that you can do, so yeah, that's why I find it so fascinating. Like I can talk for a long time about fear, and I have a lot of examples of challenges and things either that I've done or that I've helped people go through. And once you understand, like once you start going into that process of like working with fear and making it your friend and making it like a part of your everyday life, like going through that process, you realize how good it is, and then it becomes like it's a part of you. Like it's something like you realize, okay, yeah, it's scary, but at the same time it's so beneficial, I just want to keep doing it. It's like going out for a run. Like at first, maybe the first time you go out for a run, it's like, oh, I'm gonna be tired and it's gonna hurt my legs and everything, and you do it, and maybe after an hour or two, or you're rested, you took your shower, and you feel great, and like, oh wow, that was really nice, actually I want to do that again. And so the next time you go, like you don't think about the process of running, you think about the process of feeling good afterwards, and that's what motivates you to keep on doing it. And it's the same with fear. Like after a while, it just becomes this thing that you want to explore and you want to keep doing it, and you grow from it, you learn from it, and you become a better person from it.
Definitely. And I mean, I've had that experience as a result of working with you and knowing you, and also and I see, because of, having gone through this very particular approach to parkour training and movement, and then also seeing it play out in these other contexts of life as well, I now know that like if there's something I'm really scared of, but it also has to be like something I want to do. So for example, like I could say, well, I'm scared of skydiving. Mm-hmm. Like I had booked to go on a flight on a jump, and then I woke up in the middle of the night in a panic attack, like the night before. So it was like, I don't want to do it. Like, and I think there's this really big difference between, you can be scared of things and you don't have to do them, and then there are other things. So I was recently with my family in the UK, and we were at this river, and there was a bridge, and you could like jump off the bridge, but then I wanted to dive off the bridge, and one of my nephews wanted to like climb up to the top of the thing, and he was going to dive and I was going to dive. And when I climbed over the bridge and I had to like hang on to the edge of the bridge, it was like, oh shit, this is way higher than I thought. And like, I'm scared. And I was there, but like, I was scared, but I wanted to do it. And had I not gone through these processes with you and these kinds of trainings where you become more familiar with fear is your friend. What is it telling you? What is it showing you? And you get to see you are who you are in the moment, and you still have autonomy to choose. And I think that's a really big difference between, there's a kind of boot camp, shout at you, face your fears, fuck it, just, do it. And then there's this more nuanced, reflective process that still leads to you pushing the button that says, yes, I want to do it. And the benefits of that, I believe, can play out in your life in far more contexts and are far more useful than someone going, oh, are you scared? Okay, do you want to do it? Yeah. Push, and off you go. There's a different sense of autonomy in your self-knowledge, in the process. And so, like, I know, for example, when I get to a certain height, if I'm climbing, my knees physically shake. They will hit the wall. They will be like, I'm like a cartoon. I have like knobbly knees, like my knees are knocking. And I used to really think it was a cartoon thing. And then I'm like, I was up high and it's like, they're just like people down below are like, I can see your knees. And then also my decision making, quote, turns to shit when I'm scared. And I mean, for all of us, life is full of risks and it's full of challenges, and also fear dissipates our capacity for critical thinking, and critical thinking helps us form and make really good decisions. So it's kind of like, how do you, like, what are your kind of processes right now? Like, where are you at in your journey? Because I know, like, like I say, you're in this constant beginner's mindset, and it's so lovely as someone who always feels like a beginner. So we were recently together in Fontainebleau, and we're there at these boulders, and you're climbing, I don't know, 7/8, whatever the number is. You're a very, very good climber, and like I'm not, and I also haven't climbed for a while. So like the thing I'm not particularly good at, and I haven't done for a while, and I always, I was really comfortable. So I was like, hey, Thomas, my name's Julie. I'm a beginner. Can you help me find a nice route to do? And you still found something that would challenge me on so many levels. And also to say that fear, I feel this relationship between fear, effort, and self-reflection. And these are things that can be really invisible to other people. So being on this podcast may be very uncomfortable for some people. Like me stepping in front of the camera and making a video was incredibly scary for me, until I had to know why I wanted to do it, and to commit, and then have support, and then I think this other role of a guide, of someone who you can really trust in that process. I would have never faced my fears in the way I did and accomplished things I did had I not had a trusty guide, had I not had someone to guide me who had a process, who cared. So where are you at right now? What's happening in your fear world? Because we haven't even really talked about your climbing. We've talked about parkour, and you've kind of so how did this transition occur in your story as well, from parkour to climbing?
Well, I moved to Fontainebleau a few years ago, like maybe 8 years ago, which, if you don't know, parkour, Fontainebleau is like the mecca of bouldering. It's probably the best place in the world for it. Like, it's this big forest with boulders everywhere, and more boulders than you can ever climb. Like, I've been here for 8 years, and there's whole sectors of boulders that I haven't even seen yet. So it's this fantastic bouldering place. And so I was climbing already a little bit when I was doing parkour, because it's kind of a part of it. But like on and off, and a few years ago, I got more seriously into climbing. I started climbing barefoot because I just really like it. I like the feeling of it, and it's pretty nice. Like, it feels very pure, you have nothing. It's just your body. That's it. Yeah. And I realized, like, first of all, I could apply my parkour mindset of training to climbing, which felt really good because like I wasn't starting from scratch. I had all this database of information and experience that I could dig into and apply to climbing. And so I felt that my progress was much quicker because of that, or thanks to that. And also because physically I was already quite in shape. So it also helped a lot. I didn't start from scratch. And the more I got into climbing, the more I realized like I still had a lot to learn physically and mentally with it. It wasn't so much the fear process, because in bouldering, there's not like, you can find some really high and scary boulders, but most of the time you're not climbing on anything that's terrifying. So the fear that I mentioned wasn't as present. I was still looking for it. I still like to find challenges like this, but it's you have to look for it. It's not automatically with it. Like in parkour, for example, like there's no way
Everywhere.
around fear. Like
Yeah.
it's there. So I started getting like stronger and better at climbing and applying my experience and knowledge and all that, and starting discovering like new approaches um, to long-term progress, long-term goals, and dealing with very slow processes of progress, basically. Because in climbing, like especially if you climb at high level, like you make very slow progress. It's not as visible as in parkour, where pretty much every day you can do a new jump and push your limits and feel like you're a new person and all that. In climbing, it's a slower process. It can take years to climb a really hard boulder, and it's a lot of work. And so you need to have that mindset of working on the long term, and dealing with injuries and setbacks of all sorts. So it was a very different approach, and I've been really I've been learning so much through that, because I wasn't used to that. So I feel that I'm still learning a lot through the climbing. Not as much with fear. I'm applying my training that I had with fear. I'm applying it to climbing, but I'm not really pushing it any further. It's like it's there. I'm using it basically. It's a tool I have in my kit, but I'm pushing other things through climbing. So I still feel this growth and this progression in new directions. So that's why it's still fascinating for me. And also, like, I'm 39 now, so I'm not this 20-year-old kid who like is fresh and like can fall and then get back up and start again. Like now I have to deal with what people of my age deal with, like this random pain that will pop up wherever, and this tightness or whatever it is. And so like it's a different approach. It's like you need to take your time a bit more, listen to your body a lot more. And it's interesting, like, to work with all this past experience, but to apply it to this body that has now
Oh,
evolved
it's
and
changing.
changed. And yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, and I see a lot of people like talking about getting older and climbing and stuff, and like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Like, but you don't stretch, you don't look after your body, you don't think about your health, you don't think about like exercises to feel stronger and feel better. And like, no wonder you're a mess right now. Like, for me, it's like I've learned through parkour that I had to look after my body, because like even if you're young and healthy, you can get hurt very quickly in parkour if you don't do it properly. So now I apply this to climbing, and like I feel super strong. I'm almost 40 and I never felt that strong. Like even when I was doing parkour, I didn't feel that strong. Just because I'm applying all this experience and listening to my body and taking my time with everything. And also like the mindset thing is, I think it's one of my big strengths now in the climbing, because like I've learned um, to to work towards goals, especially difficult and long-term goals that require a lot of commitment and effort and all that. But at the same time, to be completely detached from it, like to be detached from the result,
Mhm.
which is it
Beautiful.
sounds like a massive contradiction. Like
Oh
it's
no, I
so
get it.
hard. Like, for me, it took me years to reach that. I went through this whole like depression phase with parkour, and kind of like felt like giving up, and stayed in my room for like 3 months, not doing anything, not going out, just being there.
You
And
became really good at magic. You became
oh
really good
yeah,
at magic
yeah,
tricks.
that was a plus
Random
side.
fact about Thomas. He's really good at magic.
Yeah. And now I feel like I'm efficient in my approach to training. Like it's climbing right now, but maybe tomorrow I'm gonna get into this new other sport or other activity, and I know I will still have that efficiency of like working towards goals, working really hard and making progress and putting pressure on myself, but at the same time not caring, being totally detached.
Mhm.
And it's this kind of like magical space, in your mind, where like you're not working with resistance in your mind, you're not in conflict, in your mind, you're letting things flow and go and happen, and you kind of respect what's going on, you respect your body, like what it's telling you. Maybe tomorrow I'm injured and I can't climb for 3 months, and that's okay. Like I know it's part of the game and I'll deal with that, and that's fine. Like, and maybe on the contrary, I'll be in my top shape and I can climb these crazy things, and that's great too. But like whatever state I'm in, I'm detached and things just flow. And like this is a big lesson from my parkour time and my whole parkour process, and I apply it to climbing now, and I feel like I have this massive advantage over so many people who are still in this mindset of I have to push hard, I have to train hard, and if I'm not training I'm shit, and if I can't climb this I'm shit, and like all this, like let go of
Many
that,
stories.
like
Yeah,
yeah.
too many stories. And I think that there are so many parallels with, especially, you're 39, I'm 50, I'll be 54 in November. And this idea that people have of their sense of value and accomplishment to these external physical goals, and the stories of well, I need to be able to do this, or this should be a measure of that. And what I found as well in the last couple of years is finding this sweet spot also of just being present in the training and not having an attachment to the goal. So like I went through Damien Norris's like 365 days to a handstand. And so every day on Facebook, he would just post like, this is day one, and day one was like, hold a plank for 1 minute, 3 times.
Mm,
Rest in between. Every 6 weeks, you would have a complete week off. And then sometimes I'd be like, I'm hiking or doing this, or I'm surfing, or I did parkour. Like, I didn't do any of that. And it's like, you good, you good, you good. And I was never thinking about the handstand. I was just thinking about, this is just the training I need to do today. Like, okay, I know it's towards that, but like that's
yeah, that's far.
that's far. What do I
Yeah.
need to do today? I just need to turn up and do this thing, and
Yeah.
to see who I am in the moment, and then to also to allow myself to recover. So, I mean, now I base my strength work and training around my capacity to recover. Like I'm not going to overtrain on an already sore body because some
Mhm.
program says you need to do this these days of the week. It's like, yeah, and I'm not, I'm flesh and blood and bones and emotions, and there's a life that happens that contributes to my energy in, energy out, mentally, physically, emotionally, every
Mhm.
single day. Like a body that hasn't slept and trains is very different than a body that has slept and
Yeah.
trained. And the role of our nervous system and our thoughts and the context of life happening alongside this is really important. And I think, yeah, for kind of menopausal midlife women, it's these same stories, but we think like, oh, it's just me, but like it's also like, a high level climber is, in terms of like, there are these strategies and these processes that we can all benefit from if we want movement for life, if we want to face our fears, if we want to know who we are, if we want to be writing our own story and not hanging on to these other stories of, I didn't do that, so I'm shit, I can't do that, or I should be at this stage in the process and I'm only about there, therefore, do you know what, I am a shitty person and I'm a failure, and like I should just, go and sit in the garden and not speak to anyone. And I'm also, because of that, I'm obviously not worthy of loving, caring relationships. I'm not worthy of financial abundance. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. Like, these stories can just feed in such an insipid way. And I think having this autonomy of who we are and ways to explore it, and how to find ways to nurture this sense of being brave. So how could someone start to work with that? Like, someone who has something where they're like, I've seen this parkour thing, or I've seen this thing that, like, I don't know why it speaks to me, but like I'm scared of it. I'm embarrassed because I'm not fit, and I think I'm going to get hurt, and I'm just like where are some opening thoughts of a process to begin with, that to start this idea of like what we would call like how to break the jump, how to begin to overcome these obstacles that for most of us are probably more mental and emotional than they are physical.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing is to understand that any big situation, any big problem that you have is always going to be made up of smaller things. So you have to start looking at those smaller things. Like, imagine you have this massive hike that you have to do, and if you think about the whole distance that you have to cover, you think about the destination, like, it's going to destroy you mentally. But if you start thinking, okay, I need to get to the tree over there, and then once you're there, I need to get to that rock over there, and that's all that exists in your mind. Like, you think of that rock, that's all. You're not thinking about the rest.
I do that
becomes
I'm just going to run to that next lamppost, and then I can walk, and then
yeah, exactly. Like, small goals. Like, for me, that's something I learned through my travels. Like, when I was in Tibet and I had to cover this big distance, and every step or every meter I had to cover was just really hard because of all the conditions. That's how I would work. Like, it wouldn't be anymore like, I need to get to this town that's way over there. It would be like, okay, over there, the road goes there, I need to go there. And if that looks too daunting, then okay, this rock is closer, I need to get to that rock. And you just completely forget the rest. So by being incremental like this, you make your goals manageable. And you can do this you can apply it to absolutely anything. So if you're thinking of getting into this new sport or new activity or whatever it is, and it feels daunting, then okay, try to look at some closer goal with it. Like, you want to get into parkour, it seems scary and everything. Okay, well, maybe you can start with something very simple, like I don't know, like jump onto the curb of your sidewalk or whatever it is. Like, what balance on this tiny wall that's next to your house or whatever. Like, work on something that's manageable, towards a goal that's manageable. And then once you get there, then you can make a new one that's like, go to the next lamppost, go to the next rock, and by doing that, you realize very quickly that you're making big progress, and you're letting go of all this mind mess, because you're no longer thinking and polluting yourself with the bigger image of the thing. And sometimes even that bigger image is something that you've made up in your mind. You think it's going to be a big, like, reaching that goal is going to be this big, massive, difficult thing. And sometimes it's not even that. So you've made up this mountain of a challenge in your mind that actually turns out to not be that hard to manage, So again, like, think about that hike mentality of, I'm just going to the next rock, I'm going to the next tree, and work with your goals like that. I think that would be the starting point. Like, for me, when I understood this, when I was traveling, and I started applying it, it made a massive difference. Like, everything became a lot more manageable mentally and physically. And yeah, you can always do a little more, but it's very hard to do a lot more, So, like, stay on the little more, just little more, little more, little more. And day after day, that becomes a big thing. When you look back, you think, okay, well, these little bits now equal this, and you can be proud and you can be happy and you've reached that goal. but it wasn't that hard to do, like little by little.
I love it. Yeah, this kind of like science of small wins, and one teaspoon
Yeah,
at a time, and
exactly.
yeah, a little consistently really helps us flex this muscle. So thank you so much, Thomas. Thank you for your time today and sharing
The pleasure.
a tiny, tiny part of your mindset and your approach and a little bit of your story. If people are interested in finding out more about what you do and how you work with fear and those kind of process, what's the best way at the moment for people to get in touch with you or find you?
I have an Instagram. People can find me on Instagram. It's Tommy Topoff.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly I post about climbing, but I'm gonna, I think, start to share a bit more about this, all this mental stuff and challenges and how to deal with them. Because I know a lot of people who are really interested in that, and I think it can benefit a lot of people. So I'm gonna start sharing a bit more of that. So you can email me there, just send me a message, or just follow.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, I always think also for women who are getting older, like life should be getting bigger, not smaller, and to not let our fears be the thing that stops that. So thank you so much, everyone, and tune back in soon for another episode, and follow Thomas and be brave, make friends with fear, and keep breaking the jump. Take care. Thank you,
Thank you,
Thomas.
Julie.